You can start your cloud ambitions up front, but if you don't have an operational model waiting for it on the other side, you're going to get stuck.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From InterVision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision.
Hello and welcome to Status Go. This is Kevin Van Mondfrans. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management at InterVision. Today I'm joined by John McMillan with AWS, a Senior Partner Development Manager within the AWS Managed Services Group. Hi, John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about the challenges that companies have making the transition to cloud infrastructure and what they can do to address those challenges. Before we dig into that, though, John, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, sure. So thanks for having me again. I'm John McMillan. I'm with AWS, and I'm a Partner Development Manager. My background is I was a managed services product manager for 4 years at Cisco, and I soon switched into more of a business development type role. But the goal is really helping partners with building out their managed services around cloud. And in this case, this is around AWS infrastructure services.
John, that sounds like a pretty lofty job to figure out how to get managed service providers to adapt to cloud services. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I joined back in May, but I would say overall, I joined AWS back in May, but I mean, I've been doing this for probably over 12 years now, helping partners build out think through the cloud market opportunity, and then helping them figure out what their path is.
Well, let's dive into the topic for today. AWS has invested in developing some core capabilities around managed services yourself, and you're also embracing service providers. Why did you guys go down this path?
Well, there's a few reasons. One of the main reasons what we were seeing was that customers all had a pretty strong cloud first strategy. They all wanted to build and move their workloads and a lot of their IT applications into the cloud. The challenge was that we were seeing that these customers would start the projects and plan them, begin to migrate applications over into the cloud, but then those migrations would stall. Largely because the same group of people that they were using to design the foundation, migrate the applications over, and ultimately manage them with the same team. And so as they started moving applications into the cloud environment, it slowed down the migrations because the same people were managing those apps in that environment. And so what we learned from customers was that they really wanted to excel their transformation initiatives, but they really lacked the in-house skills to manage the apps once they were inside the cloud. And the few people they did have trained up in the cloud were also doing the migration, so they were kind of stuck in terms of just lacking the in-house skills to do this, as well as they were seeing that they had a lot of operational security and compliance needs that they needed to support in their business and inside the cloud. And so they were struggling with the operational model once they moved into the cloud. And then lastly, once they got the initiative up and running and applications into the cloud, they really wanted to see how they could start saving money for the business. So a lot of things were coming together and fighting against each other, which really stalled a lot of these migrations. And Gartner has published a report that says that 88% of enterprise IT organizations do have a cloud-first strategy, yet 86% of their enterprise infrastructure spend is still dedicated to technology that's on-premise. So it's really they have the ambition, but there's something in the execution that's missing, and it's keeping stuff on-prem and not really fulfilling their cloud ambitions and ultimately their digital transformation vision.
Yeah, that's a pretty sharp contrast, 88% with a cloud-first strategy, but the majority, 86% of their infrastructure not making its way there. So let's talk about this stall. I've heard this a number of times. You mentioned skills, but what else is happening that these customers are stalling their migrations?
I would say that there's just long timelines for production workloads to be running in the cloud. Again, by the time they have their goals for their cloud strategy and their digital transformation strategy defined, they typically go to build out a landing zone or a foundation or an environment that's bespoke to their security and compliance needs. And that can usually take 6 to 9 months. It's usually a system integrator goes in and does that work for them. And then at that point, after 6 to 9 months, they begin the application migration work to move those applications into the cloud. And so often, a lot of the businesses don't really see returns on that investment for at least 12 months. And once they start migrating those apps into the environment, they don't have the skills, the operational skills and process to manage it. So things kind of stall. So there's the long timelines is a big issue that we're seeing as well as, again, not having the advanced skills to do those migrations and then manage those apps once they're inside the cloud.
Well, what is a reasonable, you talked about 6 to 9 months to go build out the landing zone for your applications to live within. What is a reasonable time frame? What should customers expect?
I think they're looking for return on investment within 12 months. So if you build a bespoke landing zone in 6 to 9 months and then start rolling out those applications, you're really not going to see the return on investment until month 13, month 14. So what we tried to do once we identified this issue, what we did in AWS is we thought about, well, how could we accelerate this? And that's really where we developed a service called Amazon Managed Services, which is really a technology service that really tries to shorten that timeline so customers can get those returns within 12 months or even a shorter time frame than it would take in a normal traditional path.
Okay, so you've developed a managed service to shorten the timeline to roll out your applications into the cloud. Let me ask you again. I mean, what would be a reasonable time frame given the experience that you guys have seen with moving customers into the cloud?
What we're seeing now, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 months. Usually within our service, customers get their landing zone within 2 to 3 weeks, and then the migration starts soon after that. So often the first set of applications will be rolled out within the first 3 months. And so usually in month 4, once those applications are running inside AMS, we can start to see the utilization of the infrastructure running those apps. And we can start looking for ways for customers to save money running those apps inside the environment.
Okay.
So what we're seeing, like in month 5 and 6, we're starting to go back to the customer with some ideas on how to reduce their costs.
All right. So I think I get it. Customers were taking 6 to 9 months to go develop the environment to migrate into. And you guys have shortened that to 2 to 3 weeks by having a landing zone that follows best practices.
Right.
Okay, cool. One of the other things that you had mentioned customers are getting hung up on was security and compliance. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, security, as everybody knows, especially data security, with a lot of the big data breaches that have happened over the last few years, everybody's worried about security, about cybersecurity, and so on. And in some industries, healthcare, you've got financial services, retail, they all have their own compliance standards that they need to meet. And so a lot of these industries have a pretty steep fine that happens if they breach their compliance. So really what these customers are looking for is a way to not only migrate to the cloud, but also reach those compliance standards and those security standards. So what we've done to kind of meet that in one way is our landing zone that we've created with AMS. And it really is designed it's designed by AMS security best practices, but also it's designed to meet compliance with several industry attestations, including PCI, HIPAA, GDPR in Europe. We got FedRAMP Moderate, SOC 1, 2, and 3, and so on. So we've designed the landing zone in such a way that we can meet those compliance levels for customers and help them achieve their compliance through our platform.
Yeah. So a well-built architecture is one element of this. Have you guys combined that with operational models to ensure compliance?
Yeah, so that's really how we achieve compliance is through our operational processes that we built into the platform. And so we follow ITIL, ITSM, and really it's our change management process that really helps us get or achieve those levels of compliance. Because inside AMS, it's a different way of working in the sense that customers will use our console to submit changes to their environment. And no one gets direct access to the infrastructure or dedicated access to the infrastructure. Everybody needs to open up a ticket, a request for change, and then they'll granted access up to 8 hours. And so by doing that, we're able to track all the changes that happen inside these environments. And again, can provide customers with compliance reporting to show who went into the infrastructure, who changed the infrastructure, so they can then be in compliance with their reporting.
Yeah, that's quite a difference for way I see a lot of customers managing their infrastructure on premise with more unfettered access and lack of controls around access and tracking. It sounds like you guys have nailed that down.
Yeah, we have. And so, it is a different way of working. We do have customers that, part of the onboarding process is learning that. At the same time, though, because the platform is also built on automation, they're able to move a lot faster as well. What I mean by that is over 90% of the requests for changes inside AMS are done through automation. So when somebody logs in and says, "Oh, I want to change from EC2 instance, one EC2 instance to another," they can go in. They have access to our automation library, select that change, and within seconds, that change is automatically changed inside their environment. So what it allows is businesses to move a lot faster because then all their developers and all of their engineering teams have access to the console and can go in and make changes in an automated way. It's fully tracked from a compliance perspective, and you're not waiting on somebody to make the change for you. You just have to execute it, hit send, and then that change is made inside their environment. So it actually increases speed once you learn how to use the console and this style of working inside this operational environment.
Yeah, many of us do perceive that security is a prohibitor and slows people down, but it sounds like you guys have introduced a level of automation that allows administrators to get the access they need and move through their operations.
Right, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The other area that you brought up as a key prohibitor was companies adapting to this new operational model inside of AWS. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So operationally, it is a different way to work. That's true. All the work is done through the console. Everybody who works in the console has to have Active Directory access. But once that's set up, pretty much the people inside the customer's environment can leverage the console to execute changes. And this is kind of where partners come in. For some customers, that's a lot of work to train people on this while they want them to work on other parts of the business. So part of what I do is reach out to partners who are interested in doing this model with us, like a partner managed AMS service. What that means is the partner stands in front of AMS and they become the front end. So they execute the changes on behalf of the customer. They work on the day-to-day relationship with the customer and work with them on what changes they want to see in their environment. And then they go ahead and execute that. So they kind of take that learning layer and that level of work away from the customer, so the customer can focus in on true innovation and let the day-to-day management activities that flow out of AMS and let the partner take care of that, so the customer can focus in on optimization and modernization of the workloads they have inside the cloud.
Okay. So this is all really interesting. You've got an AMS service that starts to address these critical needs like a secure and compliant landing zone, a compliant model, an operational model that follows best practices. You're speeding up people's adoption. Sounds like AWS has got this pretty well figured out. Tell us a little bit more about why you're partnering with partners to take this model to customers.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. Number one, AMS is a service that manages AWS infrastructure. Often customers have AWS infrastructure, plus they have other things that need to be managed, including like firewalls, maybe advanced security services, and other elements of their network or their environment that need to be managed. And so often customers are left kind of to bring this together on their own. Working with partners, they can bring together all of these other services, wrap them up, and sell them to the customer and manage them across all these different components and deliver a single experience and outcome to the customer. So whether that's networking, advanced security, what have you, being customer obsessed as we are within AWS, it really does create a real turnkey proposition for customers. So that's pretty much why we're reaching out to partners to work with us and help us deliver this.
Well, that sounds like a really good model, John, to have partners add some value-added services on top of what you're doing. And we're obviously excited to be part of that ecosystem. You guys have been doing this for a while. What, 3 years, I believe?
Yes, over 3 years, yeah.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples of some success stories?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you a couple of examples. So I think the level of automation is really a key thing that customers are taking advantage of. We had a customer who joined us about a year ago. And they took about 3 to 6 months for them to completely onboard all of their workloads. And what we started to see was the level of changes that they were administering in their environment accelerated. They started out submitting changes at about 2 or to 3,000 changes a month. But over the last 12 months, back in November, they actually submitted over 30,000 changes. And 97% of those changes were completed through automation. So we still had about 2,000 changes that were manual, but about 28,000 of those changes were done through automation. So from a customer perspective, all those changes were largely spawned from different innovative services and applications that they're building on top of the infrastructure that was being managed. So it's really allowed them to be more creative and really to make that creativity flow faster than they thought it could.
Sounds like you guys have built a framework to help accelerate the speed of innovation.
Right. So another example of a customer benefit is return on investment. And recently, we commissioned a study with Forrester, who did exhaustive interviews with 6 of our customers. And what we learned is, through their analysis, that customers found about a 243% return on investment with AMS. They were able to save money and do more as a result of their investment in AMS to the tune of 243%.
What are the buckets that are seeing those savings come from?
Well, one is cost avoidance. So they're saving money from the infrastructure. They save money by accelerating their migration to the clouds. Maybe data center fees that they were paying another vendor. Now they've moved those into the cloud. They've got optimized resource efficiency gains. So they're leveraging their resources in a more effective way through utilization and whatnot. And they're also getting cost savings from avoiding infrastructure fees for infrastructure that was not being utilized. So there's several ways in which, when you look at the different ways in which moving your applications into infrastructure as a service, AWS, and the way we optimize for cost and through utilization of those resources, and the ways in which we can help reduce the cost by moving into reserved instances or different kinds of services, really do add up over time.
Yeah, so I'm going to save some time. I'm going to save some money. Am I also going to save against any sort of risks that I would normally be incurring that I don't have to incur anymore?
Well, I would say we have a customer who's in I'll just say the financial services space. And what they were able to do, they were able to get cost savings by closing hosting facilities, and they migrated all of their apps into AMS in 7 months, about 71 apps. And what they were able to find from like a de-risk perspective is they saw a 50% reduction in their major incidences. So with our tooling and our monitoring of the infrastructure, they saw fewer major incidences happen once they had all their services running inside AMS. They were also at 100% patch compliance, which is another aspect of certain compliance regimes. And they also had a 30% reduction in planned maintenance. So what you see is just kind of like from a day-to-day operations perspective, there's a lot of things that can trip operations teams up. With the regimented platform that we have and the rigor we have with automation, it really does reduce a lot of those risks.
John, these are some pretty tremendous benefits. How would a customer go about exploring this and understanding if these benefits would apply to them?
Well, I would reach out to a partner that can help you kind of work through this process. I would say if they provide migration readiness assessments to help you figure out, of the workloads you have in your environment today, which ones are a good fit for moving to cloud and in what order, and actually help you scope out what that might look like from a length of time and duration. And number two, I would also ask that same partner about how they'll operate or how they guide you to operate the environment once those workloads are in the cloud. And I think, I always have a phrase around design to operate, right? You can start your cloud ambitions up front, but if you don't have an operational model waiting for it on the other side, you're going to get stuck. Kind of ties into what I talked about at the very beginning of this, that customers end up getting stuck. And so I think if you had a partner that had a service that could help you manage those workloads once they're inside the cloud and help you through those migrations, I think that would be really beneficial. And plus, obviously, having the TCO analysis to make sure you could see what your expected savings would be over time. But I'd also say, those partners that can help you kind of go the next step, because the first step is moving your applications into the cloud. The next step is really modernizing those workloads, optimizing them for cost, and then modernizing them in terms of leveraging other services inside the cloud. So you really want a partner that can help you do that end to end.
Well, John, these are some really great insights. Any party comments?
I would just say that, think of operations as you make these decisions, because that'll save you a lot of time in the long run if you have a good operational model or service helping you on the backside with your migration into the cloud.
John, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much, Intervision. You guys are a great partner and always great to work with you guys. And so thank you.
Thanks, John. And for our listeners, if you'd like to learn more, go to www.intervision.com, and our show notes will provide more information.
You've been listening to the Status Go podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.